Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Dani and today it's time for the mid-year book freakout tag. It's finally time to talk about what I read in the first half of the year. I'm very excited for this video because I haven't really filmed any recommendations or like best books, worst books yet in my channel for this year. So I think this is a great opportunity to talk about a lot of books that I haven't really focused on throughout the year. So I have here the questions with me. I don't remember who first started this tag video. If I find out, it's going to be on the description, but everyone is doing this at this time of the year, so it's really fun to just get recommendations from people's favorites and also get excited for new books that are coming out. So let's get into it. And the first question is already, which is the best book that I read in 2022? Just so you know, I don't have one single answer for any of these questions. I think only one question I have one answer. All the others I have multiple answers because, like I said, I want to take this chance to talk about a lot of the books that I haven't been talking too much about. So, what are the best books that I read so far in 2022? The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes is one of the most fun books that I've read in my life. I read it very early in the year and it's already one of my favorite series. I already read the sequel. I can't wait for the third book that comes out this year. This is just a lot of fun. It's a mystery thriller YA with a bunch of puzzles and riddles that the main character has to solve in this big rich mansion, and it's just a lot of fun. I always recommend this if people are looking for a fun time. Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. This is one that I read quite recently and I just fell in love with it. I had no idea what to expect. This was the first book by this author that I read and it was just calm. I think the title really says it all. The cover says exactly what feelings this book is going to give you. It is a sci-fi with time travel, but it's more about the story of a big cast of characters that are doing different things at different points in time, and everything comes together in the end. And it was calm, and I loved it, and I just had the best time reading this. And finally, the third of my favorite books that I read so far this year, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. This is another surprise read for me this year because I didn't think I was going to like it too much, but the audiobook was available, so I just grabbed it, and it was perfect. It was just, the narration was amazing, so like the audiobook was really good. I really love his writing, and the whole story was just perfectly paced with how the main character's life was intertwined with this giant robots that she found everywhere in the world. So that's a story. It's a sci-fi book about a girl who finds this giant robots and they appear everywhere in the world, and she has to kind of deal with the fame that comes from the viral video that she created, but also just everything that's happening in the world with these robots. Not exactly robots, I guess, statues, big metal statues. And I really loved it, and I definitely recommend, and I love his writing. Second question is the one that I only have one answer for, but I could have more. But it's just that this book is so much farther beyond all of the others that it has to be alone here in this question. Best sequel I've read in 2022 so far, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. First one is The Way of Kings. Second is Words of Radiance. I'm reading Oathbringer now, which is the third one, so that's why that one is not here. But so far, I think I still like Words of Radiance more. That one is also going to be a 5-star, but this was just perfect. It hurt me, and it made me happy. It's going to be on both of those questions later. Made me cry, made me happy. It's everything, and I really love it. I really love the series. I really love how the characters are more explored in this one, because the first book feels like a big prologue, and in this one we start getting to know a lot more about the characters, a lot more about the world, and I just love it. Next question is a new release that I haven't read yet, but I want to. So for this one, I'm counting books that have already been released in the first half of the year and that I own, because otherwise we would be here forever. So new releases from the first half of the year that I haven't read yet, and I really want to. So these are books that you can expect to see in the second half of the year on my channel because I'm going to read them, hopefully. So Book of Night by Holly Black. This is just the most hyped, one of the most hyped books for the whole year from everyone, everywhere. I have not read any Holly Black before, but I want to read it. I know everyone is hating it, and I don't know if it's going to be different for me, but I still really want to read it. The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan is another one that I haven't heard a lot about. I've heard from very specific booktubers that read a lot of fantasy only, but even then, it doesn't seem to be a big favorite of the year. But the story really intrigues me because it's about this man who is the judge, justice, executioner for the kingdom, but it's actually told in the perspective of his apprentice, which is she's a woman who's just like learning everything, and she's telling that story about what's happening with him, with her, and with this world, and just sounds really interesting, and I'm really intrigued to read it. And finally, The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton. This is a middle grade fantasy book about a girl that goes to a magical school, and that's all that I needed to know, really. It sounds a lot like Nevermore and Amari and the Night Brothers, which are both books and series that I love. We haven't got a second book on Amari's coming out this year, but they are already both series that I really love, and I can't wait to read this one. I hadn't heard about this since it came on Our Crate Junior, and I'm really excited that it was in the box because it sounds exactly like something that I would love. Next question is some of my most anticipated books for the second half of the year, and I have quite a few for this. So the first one would be, but it's not anymore because it was postponed for 2023, and that was Silverborn by Jessica Townsend, the fourth in the Nevermore series. This is still my most anticipated book that's ever coming out at some point, but it's not coming out this year anymore, so I can't put it on this list. Another one I'm anticipating it a lot, but I shouldn't, is The Lost Tomato by Brandon Sanderson, because it's the fourth book in the second era of Mistborn, and I haven't read the first three books in that era yet. So like I'm going to read them before, because I'm pre-ordering the fourth book, so I'm going to read them, and it is an anticipated book, but like I shouldn't be anticipating it because I haven't read the rest yet. But there are a lot of other books that are coming out that I can't wait for. First of all, Upgrade by Blake Crouch is coming out in July already. I already pre-ordered it. I can't wait. I have no idea what the story is about, but it's a sci-fi thriller. Dark Matter and Recursion are some of my favorite books, so I'm anticipating that one so much. Gleanings by Neil Shusterman. It's a book that's coming out later this year, and it's all short stories in the universe of Scythe, which is one of my favorite series of all time as well. So I can't wait for Gleanings. I'm very excited for that one. And finally, The Final Gambit, which is the third book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. I love the first two so much. Both were 5 stars. I'm a little bit worried because when I read The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the first two books were 5 stars to me, and they're both also YA thriller mysteries. And the third book was 1 star. I hated it. So I'm a little bit cautious going into The Final Gambit, but I still want to be excited about it because I love the first two so much. So there's that. Next is my most disappointing books of the year. So first of all, one that I don't have here with me, which is No Exit by Taylor Adams. That was way overhyped. I thought it was 3 stars. I thought it was fine. I wasn't really intrigued by what was going to happen. It was kind of very expected. The movie was better, I guess, because it's quicker to watch than the book was to read. But yeah, I was very disappointed by No Exit. I was not into it at all. And then we have a few others. So Little Women, again, so overhyped. I don't get it. It's very boring. I don't understand. There are a few parts that are interesting, and I like the characters kind of, not so much most of the time. I like this one. I love the movie so much more. The movie is so much better. The actresses, I guess, they put so much more personality in the characters than they have in the book. So I really love the movie, but the book was very disappointing, very boring. It was really hard to finish this thing. That Silence, I don't have the dust jacket in this one, but That Silence by S.A. Barnes. This was a big disappointment to me because this was sold as a horror. It is not a horror, it is a sci-fi. And not a really good one at that, because it tries to be spooky, but then it ruins it. Like the first half is great, and then the second half is like just ruining everything that the author did in the first half of the book. Very disappointing. Gallant by V. Schwab. I haven't loved everything that by V. Schwab. I haven't loved Addie LaRue as much as everyone else. So I guess this is a book that people who like Addie LaRue would like more. So I don't know, I like Vicious a lot. It was a 5 stars, but this one was very disappointing. Just, it's a vibe book, and I don't like so much vibe books. I have to be in the very specific vibe to like a vibe book, but it hasn't happened in a long time. Just not enough plot to keep me interested in the book. Okay, next one. Biggest surprise. Okay, so I already mentioned this, I guess, but an absolutely remarkable thing was a huge surprise to me because I thought it was going to be a lot about the life of the girl dealing with fame and all that, but it was perfectly paced with the sci-fi, with the big statues. So it was a huge surprise. I gave 5 stars and loved it, and I read the sequel right away. Another big surprise for me was Roxy by Neil Schusterman. I was very cautious going into that book because I was very excited about Game Changer last year, and it was not great. What do you want? What do you want? What are you trying to do? Yeah? Yeah? No? Yeah? Okay. You wanna go down? You wanna lick my makeup? Oh my god. Okay, you're going down. You're going down. So I was very worried about Roxy. I got the audiobook because I thought it would make me go through it faster if I wasn't enjoying it, and I really love the audiobook. The narration is great. It is, I don't remember if it's like full cast or there at least like a few different narrators, but I love the personal, like, so Roxy is told in the perspective of drugs that are impacting people's lives in different ways, and the narration of the personality that the narrators gave to the drugs was perfect. I thought there were parts of the book that were a little bit heavy-handed, but most of it I thought was very nuanced, that's a hard word to say, and just very interesting, and I loved it in the end. And the next surprise for me was one of the books that I read most recently, if not the last book that I finished, which is Go Hunt Me by Kelly Davis. This is coming out this month, I think. June or July or something like that. It's a horror YA about a group of kids that go to Romania, to Dracula's castle, to film a movie for school, like for applying for college. And I thought it was going to be good, but I really loved how it all happened, how it all ended. I thought there were more gruesome deaths in that book than a lot of adult books that I've read this year. So I really enjoyed it, and I really like how it ended. Favorite new author debut or new to me? Jennifer Lynn Barnes' Inheritance Games trilogy. I only read these 2 books by her, but I loved it, and so far she is one of my favorite writers this year. Emily St. John Mandel, again, only read this book, but I bought Station 11 and The Glass Hotel after I read this because I want to read her other books. I really liked her writing. And Hank Green, I think I only read the 2 books that he published so far, but I really loved the writing. The writing and the pacing of the story were one of my favorite things about this duology. Next question is newest fictional crush. I don't have any. That's not a thing for me. Then we have newest favorite characters. This is also hard for me because I don't remember the characters so much. I remember the plot and my feelings towards the story more than the characters themselves, but I have a feel for that. Melody from The Rhythmatist, she is the best friend of the main character here in this book, and I just love how dramatic she is. She's like just very dramatic, and that's what I love about her. All the main characters from Saga, the 2 main characters and their daughter, I love them. Really amazing characters. I can't wait to read more and just get to know their personality more. There are a few other characters here in the story as well that I also already love, so I'm really excited to continue the series because these characters are amazing. I'm rereading Percy Jackson this year. Right now I'm listening to the 3rd book in the series, and I love Percy Jackson and I love Annabeth. They're 2 of my favorite characters of all time, and I think I can count them here because I'm rereading the books, so I want to count them. So yes, Percy Jackson and Annabeth get the list for favorite characters this year. And finally, Lift from Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson. She's a character that appears in one of the interludes of Words of Radiance, and then we get a whole book, well, a whole novella. It's almost 300 pages, but it's supposed to be a novella about her, and I didn't care too much about her when I saw the interludes, just because I don't like the interludes in general. But in this book, I just fell in love with her, and now she's one of my favorite characters, and I want her to be happy and safe. Next is a book that made me cry. I don't think I've cried, like fully cried in any books this year, so I'm picking the ones that made me really sad or like emotional, I guess. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. If you know, you know. I can't say why. It's a spoiler. But I was devastated. And the second one for this is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green, the second one in the duology. The ending just made me very emotional, just like how he wrapped all of that up, and I really liked it, and it just made me emotional. A book that made me happy. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson made me very happy. Again, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. It made me emotional because I was too happy, I guess. So it also made me happy. Sea of Tranquility, again, it made me really happy. I just had a really nice and quiet and calm time reading this book. Inheritance Games and The Hawthorne Legacy. This trilogy, so far for the first two books, makes me really happy. I just have a lot of fun reading these books. Exile and Everblaze, the second and third books, and the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. That's how far I got to the series yet. I already have the fourth book, but I haven't read it yet. But this is another series that just makes me very happy when I'm reading it. And all the Percy Jackson books just make me laugh out loud. I just have a lot of fun. They're funny. I love their personality. I love those characters. And the books make me very happy. They're very nostalgic for me as well because I read them first when I was very young. So just rereading them, it makes me happy, makes me have fun. I have 2 questions to go. So the second to last is the most beautiful book I've bought so far or received. This is my excuse to talk about Fullmetal Alchemist because it's one of my favorite series and these books are gorgeous. I think these are the ones from this year. There's another one. There's the 17th there as well. So, but this whole edition series is just amazing. It's one of my favorite things to look at on my bookshelf. This Jane Austen collection is one of my favorite things that I own as well. It took me a long time to buy it because they're not cheap, but I just waited enough for me to be able to buy this collection because I haven't read any of the books, but I just really wanted to own this, and this is another of my favorite things to look at on my bookshelf. I could mention a lot of the Fairy Loot and Alcray books here. I really love what they do with their editions, but I would be here forever. So watch the unboxings for those because they're also some of the prettiest books that I have on my bookshelf. And the last question is, what books do you still need to read by the end of the year? Since we already talked about new releases, I'm going to talk about books that were released before this year that I still have to read. And I don't really have a list of books that I really have to read. So the only one that would be on the list is the buddy read for Discord for next month, which is the only one that we already picked. So I have to read all the other buddy reads, but the one for July is Finley Donovan is Killing It by Al Cosimano, so I'm really excited to get to this book. This is one that I have to read because it's one of the buddy reads I really want to read as well, so I'm really happy that it is the buddy read, but that's the only one that I actually made a commitment to read, I guess. If you saw one of my latest Gems game for my wrap-ups, I mentioned that I'm scrapping all the goals that I had in the beginning of the year, so I don't have a list of books that I have to read by the end of the year anymore. The one that I have to read for now is a secret book that I got from the Clear Gem from that video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch that video. But it's a secret book that I know nothing about, so I already have it, I already started it. So there's that one. And then the ones that I guess I have to read, The Second Era of Mistborn. Again, these are books that I really want to, but if I want to read the sequel, the one that's coming out in November, at the same time as everyone, so I don't get spoiled, I have to read The Second Era of Mistborn. And I have to read finish Oathbringer, read Dawn Chart, Rhythm of War, Elantris, and all the Brandon Sanderson that I haven't read yet. Just pretty much that. Those are the ones that I mentioned. So those are the books that I have to read if I don't want to spoil myself for the Cosmere. So that was it for this tag. Let me know what is your most anticipated release for the next half of the year and if I should pre-order it as well. I have some other pre-orders that I'm forgetting. Eat Girl by Ruth Ware. I think there's other pre-orders that I haven't mentioned, which I'm also very anticipating a lot. So keep an eye on my channel for the rest of the year to see what happens. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye!